basis. Thank you. Finally, Honorable Junet asked me a question I didn't expect to come from him, but I expected to come. Mr. Speaker, I've been asked about bottom-up. Bottom-up economic transformation agenda. That is how it is called. Let me tell you, through you, Mr. Speaker, tell Honorable Junet this, that bottom-up is actually a concept of UDA, read Kenya Kwanza. But I want to tell him that if you look at the philosophy of UDA and ODM, there is no difference. Actually, the two are social democrats.
Yes.
The two political parties promote social democracy. But let me leave that for that. Look at better. What is it all about? It talks about job creation. It talks about cost of living. It talks about agricultural productivity. It talks about digital economy. What about ODM? What was in our manifesto? We talked about the same. Actually, the better concept is on value addition. Now, ODM manifesto, which I participated in drafting, we had manufacturing, emphasizing on agriculture as raw material. So it is manufacturing supported by agriculture.
Did you read Animal Farm?
I read it some time back, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
But now, better is on value addition.
Yes.
For agriculture for value addition. ODM, agriculture for manufacturing. Semantics. Housing. But again, finally, Mr. Speaker, housing was our concept, both of us. But finally, Mr. Speaker, there is the Constitution and the PFM Act, which will guide my conduct in office, if approved. Thank you.
Naisula? Yes.
If you allow me, Honorable Speaker, just a supplementary on one of the things John Mbadi said around working with the National Treasury and your work as a member of Parliament, the abuse of Article 223.
Yes.
And you know, since we were both in the Budget Committee, this has been a huge problem. And it continues to date. You've had in the recent past very senior government officers trying to twist people in the National Treasury to pay even confidential expenditure out of Article 223. I want to hear what you intend to do to now stem from the root cause or where this problem emanates from, the National Treasury, abuse of Article 223. Lastly, when you spoke about the good things that we lost in the finance bill, you may or you may not agree with me that partially the problem was out of very poor communication by the National Treasury. Kenyans out there were left to just listen to what was being said by members of Parliament during debate on the finance bill to know what were the good things in that finance bill. How differently will you now, at the helm of the National Treasury, if approved by this committee, will you communicate to Kenyans to be able to know that a finance bill, as you said, is an omnibus bill? It has very many good things for the benefit of the country, which get lost in the misinformation and disinformation campaign that was there with the last one. So my question is, how will you shift the communication from the National Treasury? And with all respect to those who were there before, there was literally no communication coming from the National Treasury. How do you intend to change that? And I agree with you on the pending bills, but also tell you that probably what you also need to do is look at the procurement. For instance, and you've been a member of Parliament all these years, CDF. There are never any pending bills in CDF because of the system through which we procure. You only procure when you have exchequer with you. So probably if you get approved, that's one of the other things you need to look at, to remodel whatever is being done in mainstream government with CDF.
Mr. Speaker, go ahead. Okay.
Thank you, Speaker. To the nominee, Honorable Mbadi, you are on record in Parliament during debate of the last approval of the cabinet secretaries, and it's gone viral, widely known, that you referred to the cabinet secretaries then as skunks. Now you find yourself as one of the nominees. Are you a skunk or are you not? The second question is that we have advisors who, I'm reliably informed, sit at State House, who advise the president on matters economy. You will be seated at Treasury. I would like to know, between if this committee and the National Assembly approves you, you will have your opinion, they will have their opinion. How do you marry the two to make sure that you're talking the same? Because we have seen in the public some of the advisors talking like they're not in the same government, like the way how they work. So I would like to know which supersedes the other, and how will you make sure that you work together on matters economy and as you advise the president. Finally, there's been allegations that in Treasury, we have people who've been there for so long. Times have changed. You're seeing we are in very extraordinary times. We need to think extraordinary to get our country to where we want to be. How do we make sure once you're there, you are not held captive? Because we have seen other CSs with very good credentials. Even you, if approved, I don't know what happens when you go there. I don't know whether it is the system, you become captives of IMF, you become captives of what is going on. What will you do differently? Because we are in very extraordinary times, Mr. Nominee. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, allow me to, in response to the questions by Leader Majority, to start with the pending bills on. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I had a lot to say, but because of limitation of time, I left out something on the issue of pricing and general procurement and supply chain management. That is an area that we must address. It is what we would call addressing corruption. Mr. Speaker, if you are to buy omena in Kisumu and buy it in Kericho, despite even the transport cost, you are almost buying it at the same price. But in the same government building, 5th floor, 10th floor, buying the same item at different prices. We cannot continue like that as a country. We must find a system of standardizing our prices. And again, there has been talk about automation, end-to-end procurement must now be implemented. We cannot procrastinate further. Kenyans are crying for value for money. Kenyans are talking about economy in the use of our resources. That must be realized by deliberately ensuring that we automate procurement, from the budgeting to procurement, to receipt of goods, to payment. It must be end to end. This idea of saying we will implement it in July, now it has been moved to January. The moment I become a CS, I want to make sure that that is implemented so that there is value for money. We can save. The former president talked about us losing 2 billion shillings a day. The current president has also talked about us wastage. In fact, Mr. Speaker, you'll remember there was a time we used to talk about 10%. Now it is 30% and counting. If you listen to those who are involved in procurement, we cannot continue in that trajectory, especially now that resources are becoming more and more scarce. We must make sure that the little resources that we'll collect, and that is the responsibility of CS Finance, by the way, to ensure that there is proper accountability and transparency in the use of public resources. On the issue...
Mbadi, are you saying that apart from the IFMI system, the IFMI system is not working?
It is not end-to-end. IFMI system is, the procurement is broken. It is not end-to-end. They will tell you we have automated procurement. It's not true. So we must make sure that from budgeting all the way to payment and even use of goods, it is seamlessly integrated. We must do that. Mr. Speaker, and they have pushed that to January. They have been pushing that automation. Every time they push it, the time comes, they push it. If procurement is pushed, another date is given. So there must be a stop to that. And that stop, hopefully, will be under my leadership. at the Treasury. On the issue of...
If we approve you, in how many days will you achieve this?
I want to work with the new set deadline of January so that we don't pass January again.
Okay.
Yes. The communication, I am in total agreement. In fact, the reason why we lost the finance bill was communication. And this we must change. And by the way, one thing that I would want to talk about and maybe advise the current government, now that I'm going to sit at the highest policy decision-making body, if approved, is that we must improve on our communication. All departments, communication cannot be left one individual called communication, Honorable Mwaura, government spokesman. We must have every ministry and department communicating explicitly and clearly to Kenyans. And Treasury is going to lead. I have already inquired and found that we have a state-of-the-art media center at the Treasury on 14th floor, Mr. Speaker. That must be utilized properly. But again, we must understand that the current generation would not be very comfortable with the conventional, the traditional ways of communicating. We must be innovative. We must use the current system of communication. I know I'm not in Gen Z, I'm not a millennial, but we must be responsive to the way they communicate. And my ministry will adopt modern methods of communication. The final one was from Honorable Shungwe, and it was the first one. What did you ask about the Finance Bill 2024? That
Finance Bill was on what you have actually
answered. Now, Article 2 to 3.
Article 2 to 3 abuse.
Now, Honorable Shungwe and I have complained over the years about this Article 2 to 3 being misused and abused. Remember, Mr. Speaker, Ruaraka land was bought through Article 2 to 3, which, if you look at the Constitution and PFM Act, is very clear on how we should apply or use Article 2 to 3. It was for a good intention, that before that the government may find that there is something that should be addressed urgently, but there are not enough funds. Yet now we abuse it. We spend it on anything. Fortunately, it requires approval of the CS Treasury. And so if that abuse is to continue, it is John Mbadi, if you approve my nomination, who will continue with that bad habit. But I came up with a legislation, Mr. Speaker, not to cause any aspersion on this when I was just recently. I'm still a member of parliament anyway. I wanted to have some controls and checks on application of this Article 2 to 3. It was frustrated at the committee stage of the House, Committee of Finance. Why? Because Treasury refused to accept that legislation, where I wanted, before money is spent, before Cabinet Secretary approves, he should inform Parliament, give Parliament 17 days, just because Parliament is the one that has the constitutional mandate to approve expenditure. No any other body, even Cabinet Secretary. But now, it was frustrated. I hope another member will pick it up now that I'm there, so that I don't resist it further. But I want to give guarantee in the meantime, with the current legal framework, I will not allow for abuse of this.
You become part of government, introduce us a government bill through the majority leader.
I will be very happy to take it up if he sends it as
take
Minister
it to
now.
cabinet.
Thank you,
Hand over to majority.
But Mr. Speaker, let me just give confidence that this article will not be abused, even with the current legal framework. Okay. To the questions by Honorable Naisula, skunk. Mr. Speaker, let me say the following. Up to now, I'm a member of the National Assembly with a mandate to oversight, with a mandate to legislate and to represent. Mr. Speaker, I have a duty, up to now, to vet and approve President's appointees. I must discharge that mandate properly. And that is what I did. I am moving to the other side of the executive. I will not have that mandate anymore. It is now the mandate of Honorable Naisula and the rest of us to determine whether John Mbadi is a skunk or not. I want to leave it there. On advisors, it is true, and by the way, you can't stop the president from having advisors, whether political, economic, or otherwise. He has that mandate, he has that authority to hire. The only thing I want to state is legally, I am the principal, or I'm going to be the principal, if approved, advisor to the president on matters finance. You advise, the person advised takes the advice or not. You cannot force the person you advise to take your advice. But I also believe that these people are professionals like me. So we would be engaging at one point and agreeing or disagreeing, but the final decision will be taken by the cabinet, which is chaired by the president. Finally, the only caution I would give is if you are an advisor, please make sure the person you advise communicates. Don't communicate on behalf of the person you advise. So if I have advisors today, what I would do is to tell my advisors, please make sure when you advise me, I communicate the advice.
The rule of thumb, advisors are never known.
Thank you.
They are backroom operators.
Yes. Thank you. Finally, is about, you are very polite. They call them treasury mandarins. The people who frustrate the efforts, the good efforts of the treasury. I don't want to call them treasury mandarins. Some of these gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, are actually very experienced. Almost all of them, by the way, very experienced economists, accountants, finance experts, etc. It is just about leadership. I'll provide leadership at the treasury so that we make sure that we work for the interest of this country. If there are gaps, I want to call them gaps. If there are gaps in resource capacity or human resource capacity at the treasury, I will liaise with the relevant authorities to make sure that those gaps are filled. Thank you.
Yes, Nelson.
Maybe even
One question.
Yes, Honorable Mbadi. Maybe
I
even
hijacked and asked three. Ask one question each so that others can also ask.
maybe even consider further shuffling some of those senior treasury officials. I'm told that the mafia and the cartel there is so strong that they decide on when to send an exchequer, to release an exchequer where. So that you find agencies, some of the agencies are 60, 70% or 90% on consumption of the exchequer, yet you have others that are still lagging at 40, 50% way towards the closure of the financial year. So they are very powerful. And I think it is just not about, leadership. It's about also trying to shuffle those senior cartels that are there in the Ministry of Finance. And please do it if this committee approves you. Mine was a comment. And a question is the exchequer, not exchequer release, on shareable revenue to the counties. The law says the 15th of every month, the shareable revenue should be released to the devolved units. It has never been done in the last 10 years. What will you do different to make sure that our counties receive their shareable revenue on time?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Mbadi, should you be approved? This country is in ICU. In my look, it's in ICU. Number two, the success of all other cabinet secretaries that Parliament might approve, which now seems to be an alumni of Nairobi University, the success or failure of cabinet secretaries will be
University of Nairobi.
University of Nairobi is now the cabinet is alumni of Nairobi University. But the success of Honorable Mbadi, should you be approved, is actually you. The success or failure of all of them will actually be you. So my question is this. What took us where we are from the public is opulence. It is the behavior of public servants and government servants vis-a-vis the performance of our economy. The talk of a performance of our economy is that it is very bad. The behavior and the look of the people who work in government is that it is very good. And I will give you an example. A minister driving a Prado, and then he has a chase car, which is a Prado. And actually two of them, I have seen this on the road. Since this problem, I have not seen any government or minister's car. I don't know if they have hidden them or not. But the truth of the matter is the behavior of the government servants and the performance of economy is not actually commensurate. So my thinking, Honorable Mbadi, if you look at what you are saying, these are long-term, medium-term. I would propose, should you get this opportunity, let the minister drive a maximum car of 2,000 cc. Do what Kibaki did during Kibaki, so that the behavior of government servants and the behavior of economy actually goes together. But if you don't do that, Honorable Mbadi, that the people of Kenya will see, then you will be actually a failure. Maybe mine is a comment, Honorable Speaker, but that is a very big comment. What is your opinion, Honorable Mbadi? I thank you, Speaker.
Take the third, Kikaria.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Mine, first of all, is for the public out there. There has been this clamor that the president does appoint political appointees into. I think John Mbadi is answering them. They are out there. John Mbadi is making a good account to answer that question to the public. My question is to the nominee is this. Currently, you're the chairman of PAC, and the auditing financial statement usually are 2 years or 3 years in delay. The Auditor General's report, which is a very important report for purposes of oversight, usually come late, maybe 2 or 3 years behind. What steps will you take to expedite the conclusion and consideration of the audit report in Parliament? Thank you, Honourable Chairman.
John, I'm reading what the public is sending to us.
Thank you.
Put to you later. Go on now. Answer Nelson.
Yeah, I will start from Honourable Nelson, the Chair, Defence and Foreign Relations. On the issue of transfers or shuffling at the Treasury, what I would say is I'm going to look at the Treasury in its totality and see if there are gaps and if there are areas where we can change people, move one person from one place to the other. But to me, the most important thing to do is to have a system that functions. Because if you don't have a system that functions, whoever you bring may just mess you up. So we need a system that is functioning, a system that even if I'm away, would still ensure that what should be done is done. The issue of favoritism, where some MDAs get funded and others are not, that to me is a failure of the system. We must correct that and ensure that there is equity, that there is fairness, that the system serves all Kenyans equally. So it is about system. Once you put the system in place, the officers you will put will do what is required. On the issue of shareable revenue going to counties, you are addressing, Honorable Nelson, you are addressing a converted person. I am a supporter of devolution, and I know that we need to support our counties. Counties are struggling at times, and a lot of times. In fact, we are incurring a lot as a country by failing to send monies to counties within the required time. Why? Because counties end up borrowing money from commercial banks and pay huge interests on borrowed funds just to pay salaries. We must make sure that we reverse that. I know there are revenue constraints, but we must balance. We must manage our cash flow. That will be my responsibility. One of the most important and critical departments at the Treasury is that Department of Accounting, the department that deals with managing the cash flow. On Honorable Kosing, I hear you. A lot of opulence, a lot of wastage. By the way, even the reconstitution of this cabinet is as a result of, is actually a direct consequence of show of opulence, which made some Kenyans mad to the extent that now the president had to be forced to do certain things which he shouldn't have done, really. So we must contain wastage. We must contain wastage, but we shouldn't be mechanical about it. In my view, we should contain it practically. One of them is to reduce our operating expenditure. We must make our budget transparent. This idea of lumping budget lines and saying other operating expenses must go from our budget. What are these other operating expenses? We must be clear. If we are paying for mileage, Mr. Speaker, for example, let it be known. We know that members of parliament have to be facilitated to go to the consumer. I'm not saying that is parliament that is putting, actually parliament rarely put block figures.
It's good to use us as an example.
Yeah, but I'm giving
no
parliament as an example. But there are ministries, departments, which do that. Mr. Speaker, have you asked yourself why we still have one officer, a driver, taking Impress for 200 staff for a training? Yet every member of staff has an IFMIS number. Let each person get a per diem allowance or Impress and comes back and accounts for it, like it happens in parliament. Anytime I move out of the country, I am given my Impress. I come back and account for it directly. It's not never given to clerks. But you go to ministries, there is lump sum amounts, Impress, you find someone taking 3 million. These are wastages that we must work on and control. Finally, on that, Mr. Speaker, and as I said, we must work on procurement. That, to me, is the elephant in the room. On Honorable Gikaria, I know Kenyans have not had kind words for political appointees, but I also want to tell Kenyans out there that being in a political office is just a calling. Actually, it is them who elect us to those offices. It doesn't take away our training, background, and professional experience. I have said I've worked for 28 years. I am a professional, just like any other professional, whether in politics or in private practice or in otherwise. Remember, Mr. Speaker, I didn't say this. This Public Finance Management Act, my signature is here. I was in the task force which did this Public Finance Management Act. We were with the former CS Rotich. We were with Kamau Thuge, who is now the governor of Central Bank. We were with Professor Malombe, or I don't know whether it's Dr. Professor Malombe, who is now the governor of Kitui, and myself, paid by World Bank to prepare this Public Finance Management Act, which is used by everybody. I'm a professional, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2011, you remember, and we were with you in the National Assembly, consulting with Mass Group. I was their consultant. We came up with the 10 million error in the budget. I'm the one who brought it to the House, which became known as computer error. As a professional, I made sure that Kenya, and by the way, Treasury agreed that that was an error. Remember, there were professionals at the Treasury, but the professional who is a politician is the one who discovered that there was computer error. So I want to just give confidence to the public that even when you're a politician, you can be a professional. Finally, on chairing PAC and financial statements that are in arrears, the confidence is this, Honorable Gikaria, that beginning with Honorable Wandai, who is my predecessor, to my committee, we have really tried to be up to date. In fact, I am leaving that chair when we have just concluded examining accounts for 2021-2022. We were planning to have the report in the House in July. Unfortunately, because of the events that we are all aware of, that report, I'm sure, will be tabled in August. Then we'll only be remaining with 2022-2023, because 2023-2024 has not been audited. It will come next year, like February. The committee that I'm leaving in place, I am sure before the end of this fiscal year, will be done with 2022-2023 and table their report. So we'll be up to date. There should be no worry at all. The National Assembly has done a lot of justice to our audited accounts. But, Mr. Speaker, you'll allow me to mention that we need to give more resources to our Auditor General to do special audits, do forensic audit, because this financial audit that we are paying too much attention to is not going to help us really improve financial management. In my office, if you approve me, I will persuade the cabinet to give more resources. We can afford to give more resources to Auditor General to save much more, because we are losing so much. Special audits, and I've left quite a number, which I asked the Auditor General to do. If you look at those special audits on the study, 3 of them I'll mention. One is on Article 223, Mr. Speaker. It is there in Parliament, and the committee will deal with it. There's another one on fertilizer. All these issues that we are talking about are in that report. Number 3 is on Stadia. Serious mismanagement of resources or in construction of our Stadia across the country. If you look at that report, you would be very happy with the work of the Auditor General, as opposed to financial report. So we should really give more resources to the Auditor General to do special audits so that Kenya can save money, which is being wasted through corruption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mary Emasi, the Honorable.
Thank you, Chairman. Nominee, my questions to you start from a statement you've just made to Kenyans, confirming that in the collapsed finance bill 2024-25, that indeed there were good clauses or good intentions for Kenyans. And that is why some of us who voted yes believed in incorporating the views of Kenyans through public participation, removing the bad and approving the good therein. Having said that, one of the reasons why we've been judged harshly by Kenyans, and again you've alluded to that, is the miscommunication. How we communicated the contents in the finance bill to Kenyans, which was surrounded by a lot of propaganda. Now, my question to you, how best do you think that we should communicate to Kenyans? How best should we do public participation going forward? Because you are the one who is going to bring to us the next finance bill. Secondly, you've also spoken to the aspect of revenue raising, and you've said you're going to have a dialogue with KRA and see how best to improve KRA. Do you believe by just restructuring or reorganizing KRA, we will be able to raise sufficient revenue to finance our budget? If not, what other revenue-raising measures do you intend to bring on board, because you're the one who will be bringing to us the finance bill? Last but not least, we have interns in KRA. Some of them have been serving for the last 3 years and just getting stipends. They have not been confirmed. Yet I'm also aware that KRA is understaffed. For them to realize the objective, they need to be staffed properly. What are your thoughts? What are you going to do about it? And finally, the last one.
One at a time.
The last one, Honorable
You've
Speaker.
hit 2 already.
Just the last one. Again, a nominee in the supplementary estimates 1 for 24-25. We have rationalized expenditure for all sectors in pursuit of fiscal consolidation. And this is adversely affecting some of the social safety nets that are likely to affect the most vulnerable members of the society. How do you intend to turn around the economy so that you cushion Kenyans to prevent negative impact on their welfare? Thank you.
Members, at least be conscious of your colleagues also queuing to ask questions.
Chair, my apologies. We've worked with the nominee in the budget and appropriations, and we're also in the same line. So I had a number of questions. Thank you.
Divorce and due familiarity with the nominee, and interview them in the manner we have been interviewing others. Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
One question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The nominee, Honorable Mbadi, the division of revenue for the county governments was reduced because of the failure of the 2024-2025 finance bill falling. And now, subsequently, the finance bill 2023 has been declared unconstitutional. do you, in your opinion, think that again you will ask for the division of revenue from 380 billion going to the counties, going down again? Secondly, is the tax policy, being an accountant of long standing, you know, tax has to be simple and not be changing each and every other day. You have to give businesses time to recover, because if you change tax policy every other year, how do people plan on what they are going to do? Because that is the other issue. You talked about pending bills as well. You said they should not be paid, or you will have a system. What kind of system are you talking about? You're saying they will not be paid, or you will pay them, but in what manner will you pay them? Thank you.
Murugara as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, the Honorable John Mbadi. To the eyes of Kenyans, you are actually the treasurer of the country. You are the one who is going to be responsible for everything that we treasure, especially our money. The first limb is, would you be able to take a stand and keep that stand firm? Will your yes be a yes and your no be a no? And if so, Kenyans know very well that the reason why we are where we are grossly is because of pilferage of public resources. And everybody knows what the Auditor General, whom you propose to be funded, has been reporting year in, year out. But not one, not two have been taken to court or any form of action taken where it is glaring that public resources are actually being wasted. If this committee affirms you to be the CS Treasury, can you tell Kenyans whether you would actually stand with them to have all thieves, corrupt people, everybody who has pilfered, being brought to book to take responsibility for that crime?
Now answer those, Honorable Mbadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to address the questions raised by Honorable Massey. Honorable Massey, I can't overemphasize the value of communication, and I would repeat again that one of the weaknesses of the Finance Bill 2024 is that it was not explained properly. And remember, there was this tax on motor vehicle. No one could explain why it was necessary. The people, some of the people or speakers the government sent or Treasury sent to explain it even made a mess of the explanation by saying that this is to increase or enlarge the tax base. Yet almost every one of us who owns vehicles, we pay taxes in one way or the other. So communication is key. Public participation, I think National Assembly, Senate, we need to come up with a clear legislation on public participation. Given the recent events at the courts, we must. This is a priority, and I am looking straight at the majority leader and the minority leader. Then the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, kindly help the government get a legislation in place if the government has not prepared one already.
AG is working on one.
The AG is working on one, I hear. That is very good. So, yes, I don't want to say that there was propaganda or otherwise. You know, if the animal had become bad, Mr. Speaker, in the eyes of Kenyans, the Public Finance Management Bill 2024. So reasoning was thrown off the window, and everybody believed it should be defeated. So I think that is what, but that is because of the communication. On the issue of, so you see, at the beginning, for us to communicate effectively on any matter that comes from government, first there should be believability. I think trust level has gone down. We must build it. We must rebuild trust level. The government must rebuild that trust level. On revenue collection, there are many other measures, but the most important is we must clearly have a state-of-the-art system to collect our taxes. Other revenue-raising measures, I want to mention that we must now think through methods that would generate revenue off balance sheet. One of them is climate change financing. Climate change has a lot of money out there, 1.3 trillion US dollars. We must tap into that money to reduce pressure on the budget. My colleague and friend Honorable Duale's budget should heavily be funded from the climate change financing. Kenya has already applied and has succeeded in securing 259 million US dollars, which will go to 47 counties. It should also help us generate or create jobs for our youth. Another one is PPPs. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to say something about this. You know, we must adopt public-private partnership as a country. But this is going to be very difficult because already the public don't understand PPPs. You can see the issue of JKIA, Mr. Speaker. It's because the public does not understand PPPs. But PPPs is the route to go. We just need to be clear. We just need to have the framework in place. I must give capacity because it is resident in Treasury. Capacity to that department dealing with PPPs. Not just look at the big projects. Mr. Speaker, we must also apply PPP even in small projects to reduce pressure on exchequer. For example, I'll give you an example which I learned recently, that Kerio Valley Development Authority has a 2-acre land here at Upper Hill, and they had got a private investor to develop offices on that plot for government offices. That request was sent to the National Treasury, and it is gathering dust until they gave up. We must embrace PPP, not just for big projects, across level. And your guess is as good as mine why people focus more on big projects and not the small ones. Road sector, in terms of even maintenance of the roads, in terms of even developing new ones, but we must clearly do evaluation and see if they can work. There is the energy sector, even agriculture, irrigation, we can do PPPs, even the communication, all sectors of the economy, so that we reduce pressure from the exchequer. On staff at KRA, I think I dealt with this before, that we need to look at the staffing staffing of KRA and give them capacity and fill in the gaps. If there are people who have been serving on contracts for a very long time, it's not even that is not even permissible in terms of human resource management. There is a period through which you can work as a temporary staff. On supplementary one, how do we turn around the economy? This one, I have a lot to say, but I don't want to say so much that I have, because it may take the whole day. Let me just, in 1 minute, summarize. Why is it that our economy grows at 5.6% but is not felt? You need to look, Mr. Speaker, and assess where we have the economic growth in this country. It's mostly agriculture and social and services sector. Agriculture is known not to be very good in raising revenue for the economy. Not very good in raising revenue world over. Why? Because it's largely informal. Now, we must treat agriculture not as an end in itself. We must invest in agriculture, but with a different mindset. We invest in agriculture to support manufacturing, because manufacturing creates more jobs, manufacturing grows economy much more. Vision 2030, our intention was by 2030, we hit a minimum of 10% GDP. We must do that by working on manufacturing. I want to leave it at that. On Honorable Dayu's question, division of revenue, my view is we shouldn't cut any further the monies that we allocate to counties. Otherwise, we will kill devolution. This was a masterstroke with this constitution. We must, and we owe it to future generations to protect devolution at whatever cost. And that is why in the PFM Act, the moment we approve money to counties, you cannot reduce money that goes to counties. Even if there is a shortfall in revenue collection, That was meant to protect the counties. One of the functions given to Treasury is to protect the county governments. And I would not fail in my constitutional obligation to protect the counties. Taxation, I cannot agree with you more. Our tax laws are sometimes too complicated, making it very hard for taxpayers. In fact, it is causing taxpayer apathy. One of the principles of taxation is simplicity, fairness, equity. Our tax system is not simple. In fact, I just forgot to carry. I wanted to read to this committee, Mr. Speaker, a provision in the, do I call it defeated or withdrawn finance bill of 2024? Clause 12, calculating minimum top-up tax. You need to be a very smart accountant to calculate that. Lot of formula, different jargons. You cannot have such kind of legislations and expect to collect revenue. So we need to simplify our tax laws and tax system. If there are, I'm going to work around and check the tax laws that are complicated, that are causing us to lose money. Because when taxpayers realize that it is very difficult and complicated and costly to comply, they will not comply. So we must lower the cost of compliance to taxation. Pending bills, will I pay or not? It is not even me to pay. Authentic bills must be paid. Bills that can be confirmed. And my comment is, we must put a stop. Going forward, there should be no discussion anymore on pending bills. Let us deal with the historical bills and pay them. But going forward, let us not allow MDAs to accumulate more pending bills. And by the way, you'll remember, I have a constitutional mandate. Actually, it is in the statutes. If a accounting officer fails to do what should be done, we can withdraw that power from accounting officer. And that power is with the Cabinet Secretary for Finance. So I am not scaring anyone, but let them be on notice that if you are not going to do what is provided for in the PFM Act, please, you will not be an accounting officer of the government of Kenya. On Mrugara's questions, will I be firm? This one I think Honorable Mrugara has an answer. Because, you see, those who know me...
He wants to hear from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, those who know me know my level of firmness. That does not mean I'm disrespectful. You must know who your boss is. You must know where your loyalty lies. But loyalty does not mean that you must be a yes person. I have, in a number of occasions, disagreed with my party leader, who was my boss in the party. You wouldn't know about it out there. Honorable Junet would know. Family, but I don't talk about it, because then that would be disrespectful. So if I am told to do what I should not do, I will not do it, if it is not provided in law. Because my duty number one is to protect, safeguard the Constitution. I hope that answers.
Owen.
On the last one.
Yes.
On pilferage of public resources, I think this.
It has been the streak
that
of
I have
answers.
addressed even previously.
It has
Thank
been
you.
the streak of your answers. Owen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable John Mbadi. Two quick questions. One, VAT refunds and tax refunds is actually one of the loopholes that people use to pilferage funds in this in the government. And you're an accountant, you understand this. I've heard you talk about it. Now that you're in that seat, how are you going to ensure that we don't continue to lose funds through tax refunds, especially VAT refunds? What mechanism will you put? And courts have been used as a means to sabotage government, that people, if you must give back money to taxes, they rush to court, and a lot of money actually is held. Billions of shillings is held because there are court cases, and therefore government cannot access it. What are you going to do to unlock that money, reduce corruption in terms of VAT, and ensure that there's enough cash flow? Secondly, equally, I know you're a believer in constitutionalism. If you look at the Constitution, it's very clear. You have money for counties, you have money for national government. There's also another fund called Equalization Fund, for which many cabinet secretaries have never taken it seriously. And therefore, they pay counties, They pay national government, but equalization fund is put under the carpet. And actually, it is Treasury which manages it, unlike the other funds, and therefore they never. And yet, Constitution is very clear on equalization fund, but this money has never. I think it was disbursed only once. If approved, John Mbadi, what are you going to do about it? And lastly, John.
Thank you.
This is very important.
Two questions.
This is very important, Speaker, if you allow me. You have, in your career in Parliament as a public, I don't want to call you a politician, but a public service servant. You have disagreed a lot with a lot of the issues that have come from Treasury, a lot in Parliament. You have disagreed. Those are actually prepared by mandarins that you will find there. You know, and especially on finance bill and matters finance, you've agreed with them totally in almost everything as you've been leader of a minority in. How are you going to change? Are you going to change the people? Or you will become, you know, there's a popular saying that same monkeys, same forest. You know, are you going to be one of the monkeys now there? Or are you going to say, I want all the monkeys out and you become the bigger monkey and manage? Thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. From skunks to monkeys. Now, Speaker, you'll allow me two quick questions, one on integrity and the other one on capacity of the nominee. And from the words of the nominee, trust level has gone down, and that's one of the problems we are facing. Now, this is a public office that you've been nominated to that requires serious public trust. I want to take you back. Today you've admitted that there are very many good provisions that were lost in the finance bill. In fact, you're looking for ways by which you will be able to redeem. But you on the floor vehemently opposed this finance bill. In fact, at every clause you said, reject the bill. So now, doesn't this make you appear pretentious, deceitful, and probably a master at doublespeak? And why should Kenyans trust you? Because you've been on record and Kenyans watched and listened to you. Now, on the other bit, still on integrity, you know, we've had this case that one of your predecessors ended up in court on the issue of the dams, Aro and Kimwarer. I was in Parliament with you and we discussed this severally on the floor. These are payments that were made when, in fact, even the feasibility studies probably had not been completed. How will you make sure that this kind of payments will never again materialize from Treasury? And now on the issue of capacity, as Azimio, where you are a member until just the other day, we were alarmed by the Kenya Kwanza plans to increase taxes and borrow more, and we are saying we are not even seeing the development out of that money. Noting that Kenyans do not want punitive and excess taxes, and at the same time the young ones have said they don't want us to borrow. Can you tell us how you will navigate that space?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, nominee, Honorable Mbadi. Honorable Mbadi, you are getting into Treasury, whereby our health sector is extremely underfunded based on the Abuja Declaration and the United Nations recommendation on how countries should finance the health sector. In Kenya, the health sector highly depends on donors, and the donor basket is shrinking, and United Nations is requesting countries to increase domestic financing. The challenge comes whereby the resources within the country are also shrinking. How do you tell Kenyans that they will enjoy universal health care and quality health care with the kind of scenarios I've explained, and how will you navigate to make sure that money sent from national government to county government, in preview that health sector is devolved, are ring-fenced for Kenyans to get health quality service at the county government as a minister for, as a nominee, and if you're approved by this government, this committee, how will you make sure that the finances meant for health sector really goes to the health sector in this country?
You can answer those.
Thank you. Let me start with Mr. Speaker, let me start with the questions directed to me from Honorable Owen Bayer, the Deputy Leader of Majority. On VAT refunds, Mr. Speaker, we have the tax, this is what we call the tax expenditure. It is costing us quite a bit, in fact, almost $500 million every year to refund taxes, a lot of which are fictitious. It means there is a problem with the system, and that system must be corrected. But again, I think we need to, as a tax expert, and Mr. Speaker, I think I'm one of the people who can explain clearly the difference between zero rating and exempt commodities in this country. But I don't want to bore you with those explanations. I just want to mention that I think we need to have a conversation whether those items which we need to subsidize through VAT so that we don't expose Kenyans to untold sufferings as a result of high cost of living, we may think of most of them go to exempt categories, so that we avoid the zero rating of commodities which result in tax refunds. Because tax refunds is largely, especially on VAT, as a result of zero rated commodities. Yes, the prices will slightly increase because zero rated commodities become cheaper in the long run if it is properly administered. And I want to be very careful there, because the zero rated commodity, sometimes the benefit is not passed to the consumers. So we need to emphasize and have almost every item that we want to still subsidize under VAT under exempt commodity. Then you will eliminate the issue of tax expenditure in that line. The other issue is also on the advance taxes that we pay. We must have a system that captures these advance taxes properly so that when finally the taxpayer files returns, they don't claim tax refunds which they don't merit. Then we will minimize the issue of tax expenditure. On equalization fund, I can't agree with you more. This fund must be operationalized. I know there are some challenges. When I get to the Treasury, if you approve my nomination, Mr. Speaker, I will find out what are these challenges. I'm told there are issues about whether to use counties or areas. The Constitution actually talks about areas. It doesn't talk about counties. But we should also not spread it too thin, because we know it is stemming from Article 201, Mr. Speaker, where there should be inclusivity, there should be equity in developing our country, using our public resources to develop the country uniformly. So we should not spread it too thin. There are certain regions in this country which have been marginalized over the years, from Sessional Paper number 10 of 1965. Those regions deserve attention, and we had only 20 years to do this. I know Parliament can change that, but why don't we utilize that properly? So when I get to the Treasury, I will make sure that this fund is properly operational. Every year the money is released. It's not even a lot of money to attend to issues of health, roads, electricity, and water. It's only targeting 4 areas. Finally, on that matter, Mr. Speaker, I speak with passion because I know what marginalization is all about. Mr. Speaker, I recognize myself both as a Luo and as a Suba. My mother is a Luo, or the late mother was a Luo. My late father was a Suba. So because in our society, you take your father's ethnicity. I'm so a Suba, so I am a Suba. Subas don't even constitute 2%, so we are a minority. I know what it means to be marginalized. I have been disagreeing with the National Treasury. No, I have not actually been disagreeing. I've actually
You've been holding just a different opinion.
A different opinion. And by the way, now those opinions, we will have difference of opinion, Mr. Speaker, at the source. So it doesn't have to come to Parliament. Those opinions, the differences will now be at the source.
And they will be harmonized there.
And they will be harmonized, and I will finally, Mr. Speaker, take the same to the cabinet. I'm the one who will be defending these tax measures, or whatever it is, whether budget estimates, or it is BPS. I'm the one who will now be presenting them to the cabinet. I must present something that I'm convinced, I understand, and I agree with. But that does not mean that only my ideas will have to be taken. No, you must accept also to be advised. These people have wealth of knowledge. Some of them know probably even more than I do in matters economics. So I will listen to them, but I'll take the responsibility. Honorable Mbui is now not trusting me. But, Mr. Speaker, you know Honorable Mbui was actually my deputy for 5 years. And he knows that I can be trusted. We were responding to Kenyans. And I was actually, Honorable Junet is helping me by telling me the whip was applied. I am a very faithful and loyal member of it. By the way, I have been a member of the Economic Council of Azimio, advising the leader of Azimio on economic matters. And I was convinced that even though there were some good provisions in the bill, which I mentioned when I was contributing on the floor of the House, you gave me 5 minutes as a speaker. And I said there are some good ones, but the bad ones now have made the good ones look bad. You know, and so the public made a referendum. There was a referendum, an official referendum by the public on this bill. Mr. Speaker, if you looked at the social space, everybody was saying reject. And since I am representing people, not stones, not animals, I had to listen to the people and do what they wanted, Mr. Speaker, by rejecting the bill. So there is no inconsistency. My trust the level is still where it was, Honorable Mbui. And by the way, I don't think I'm not a member of Azimio. I am, only that I'm not an official of Azimio. I mean, I'm not holding any political office. I'm still a member of ODM, by the way. On Arawa and Kimwarer, that, I must say, contracts in this country, Mr. Speaker, and my stint as the chair of Public Accounts Committee has taught me something. That the contracts that we sign, especially financial contracts, are lopsided. They are helping the lenders more than they help the country. Why on earth would you start paying interest on money that you have not received? I don't understand it. I don't get it. And this is why I'm saying when I get to the Treasury, if you approve my appointment, my nomination, I will have to get the opinion of the Attorney General. Because you find a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. It will come in the report of Public Accounts Committee. We pay so much money on undrawn funds because it is provided in the contracts. And so those issues around Aurora and Kimwarer and such like equivalent projects, Honorable Mbui, have confidence, will not happen during my tenure. Finally, on Honorable Mbui, how would we navigate the lack of funds? We know there's lack of sufficient exchequer in this country, and that's why we have to divest and move to other areas which are off balance sheet, as I've mentioned before. But more importantly, our project management system. We have 437, Mr. Speaker, that is the latest data that I have, of stalled projects. This is where we have invested money, but they have become white elephants. We must do these stalled projects, pick up, take them up, and complete them. Those which you can treat as Sanko. But, Mr. Speaker, there should be coordination between national and county governments. You find a huge government project, national government project, which was developed even from 10 years ago, in a county, lying there, yet a county government is constructing another state-of-the-art block of offices. Why can't we have a system where national government can surrender to county government some of these bills so that they can complete and use them? Honorable Mule, Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to move fast. I hope I'm doing justice to all the questions. Honorable Mule, I know there could be underfunding. There is underfunding of the health sector. But I think health sector, we must look at it in totality. Before we even calculate how much we spend, we must find out how much national government is spending and how much county governments in total, 47 of them, because we have one country with 48 governments, which should be interdependent. So when calculating how much we spend on health, we should take it in totality and make sure that any money that is supposed to be devolved for health is devolved for health. We should not keep money at the national level here, implementing things on projects which should have actually been implemented by the counties, and have a coordination on how this is done. It may not be my exclusive. It may not be exclusive duty of this office that I'm supposed to get to. We have the Senate to oversight this. We have county assemblies, and we have and we have control of budget. We must work collectively. So that would address the issue of ring fencing the money. We must allocate more resources to that department. Finally, Mr. Speaker, all this would only bear fruits if all agencies work together, including the EACC and other DCI and other agencies which help us in fighting wastage of public resources.
Good. Russell, Honorable Dida Russell.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable John Mbadi, I think my entry is about the Treasury. Reform in Treasury is really important. As it were, Treasury is being manned by, I think, 2 or 3 tribes. Kenya has 42 different communities. All of them should be represented where the national cake is being shared. Having said that, my question is on financial inequalities in this country, where most of the rural constituencies, communities, or areas are actually totally marginalized, and they are not part of the mainstream economy. The question is, if the House will give you the job, what are some of the initiatives you are likely to, so that places like Suba, Moyale, Mandera, Lamu are part of the mainstream economy of this country? Finally, is on what we call funds. People are keeping money in their homes because you are told don't bank more than 1 million.